Hey everyone, my name is Zach Weiss and I am the co-founder of Worn & Wound, and today I'm going to be going hands-on with the Grand Seiko SBGW293. This is one of the newest watches in the 44GS category, and I'm pretty excited to have had the chance to check it out for a little bit. So as you might recall, back in April of 2022, Grand Seiko announced for the 55th anniversary of the 44GS case a new version in their contemporary collection of that 44GS case, or one based on it, at 36.5 millimeters, which is what you're looking at here. That was very exciting because for a while, for a good long while in fact, the 44GS base cases were all around 40 millimeters, which you can see here on the SBGA375, which, by the way, I gave a very extensive review of just a few weeks ago. So if you want to learn a lot more about this watch, go check that out. It's around 20 minutes, so take some time. But back in April, what they did was they launched it with a limited edition, which had a soft pink dial and a very pleasant texture to it. And because it was limited, it naturally sold out fairly quickly. But because it was a whole new case, it seemed pretty obvious that Grand Seiko was in fact going to utilize it again, and we were just waiting for that day. I did get to check out that pink model, but I only got to see a dummy of it, and it was a very quick sort of presser. That said, it left such an impression on me that I wrote a whole article about it. This is a beautiful watch no matter how you look at it, an absolutely beautiful case, and the new proportions I think are going to be extremely exciting to a large swath of people, particularly people who frankly were shying away from the 40 millimeter case because it is a much more robust modern size, whereas this 36.5 millimeter case is much closer to sort of the original 1967 vintage proportions. So after they launched the SBGW289, they followed up with the SBGW293 as well as a sibling model that were both open models, meaning that they are just part of the core collection. So as you can clearly see here, the SBGW293 features this sunburst sunray chocolate brown dial. It might lack one of Grand Seiko's, unique and sort of telltale textures, which they have become known for, but it has a very unique color. Brown dials are very uncommon. I can't really think of very many others that are on the market right now, particularly in open editions. Occasionally you'll see a very high-end brand like FP Journe do a brown sort of tobacco inspired, like a Havana brown sort of a thing. But to have it as part of a main line, I think is really exciting because it is just a very unique color, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a chocolatey mid-tone. It has a sort of bronzy characteristic to it as well when it catches the light. Different sort of versatility from a blue or a black dial, but brown is also just extremely easy to work with and extremely easy to pair with. So I think this would be, on top of just a, sort of a beautiful watch for its other merits, it's just case design, etc., something that would be fairly unique in a collection, because I don't think you're going to find another brown dial quite like this. The star of the show, however, is, of course, this 44GS case at 36.5 millimeters. What makes the 44GS case really stand out to me is the kind of aggressive use of Zaratsu polishing, which makes it exemplify Grand Seiko's grammar of design, which is why in 1967 it became such an important case and why they're celebrating it so much in its 55th anniversary. For the 36.5 millimeter model, they did kind of change the proportions a bit from the larger 40 millimeter model. So you'll see on the larger 40 millimeter model, the flanks sort of go past the bezel on the side, whereas on the 36.5, they're much more tucked in. That already kind of gives it a little bit more of an elegant line to it, and also helps keep the dial a little bit larger. So although this is 36.5, it really wears, fairly well. It doesn't feel small at all. They also kept the lugs fairly sizable for the watch, so it's 18 on the 36.5 versus 19 on the 40 millimeter. I'm very glad that they kept it at 18, because anything below that frankly would have been a total pain to buy a strap for, and would have made it feel, I think, perhaps a little bit too dainty on the wrist. It's 42.7 millimeters lug to lug, and about 11.9 millimeters thick to my measure, and that's to the top of a domed sapphire crystal here. Because there is a crystal as part of that number, and because of the shape of this case, which as you can see features a lot of facets going up and down, kind of an interesting shaped bezel, there's really almost no flat parts to this design. It really wears very thin on the wrist, very low to the wrist, and you'll find that a jacket or a shirt sleeve will just pass right over it. As you can see on my 7-inch wrist, the SBG293 wears just so beautifully. I mean, This is like the proportion of an elegant watch that you want to find. It fits really nicely lug to lug. It sits very well on my wrist. It has a nice amount of presence because the dial is certainly not too small. There's a nice amount of metal coming off of those flanks. The finishing, obviously, this is Grand Seiko. It's absolutely beautiful. So you have these wide polished, Zaratsu polished flanks and the polished bezel, and then these great little brushed lines, which, as I commented when I reviewed my 375, are one of my favorite features, sort of a vestige of the original 44GS, which would have been squared off in the middle there. Absolutely stunning, just breathtaking. You know, obviously I'm wearing it here with a denim shirt and a gray herringbone jacket, and I think it works absolutely perfectly. This is the strap that it comes on. This is an 18mm crocodile strap with a very nice deployant and clasps, which I actually hadn't seen before from them. I think it's just an all-around really beautiful package. One thing I do want to point out about this watch, though, that I did experience was that winding it isn't necessarily the easiest thing. So powering the SBGW293 is the caliber 9S64, which is Grand Seiko's sort of go-to mechanical manual wound movement. It's in anything, I believe, called SBGW. Now, I have another watch in my collection that has this exact same movement, which is the SBGW277, which is from the Elegance line, and as you can see, features a very different case. Now, you'll notice just by looking at them, the crowns are pretty different. The crown on the 44GS case is a bit smaller and a bit shorter and a bit more recessed into the case. When I wind this watch, which I do often, because I wear it very often, it's very easy. It's so easy to grasp and turn. It's quite lovely, in fact. What I found with the 44GS is that it's really quite small, and it's a bit slippery. Your fingers almost want to slide across the bezel more than the crown. So each turn just takes a little bit more effort, and you kind of get a little bit less out of each turn. And this is a 72-hour power reserve movement, so there's quite a lot of turning you have to do. This doesn't kill it, but I definitely feel like there could have been a slight improvement to that crown to make it a little bit more grabbable and a little bit more easy to turn, because it's manual. You have to turn it when you want to wear it. Other than that one issue, though, I think this is just an absolutely exceptionally beautiful watch. Big surprise. It's Grand Seiko. They know what they're doing when making very beautiful watches. And it's just such a welcome addition to their lineup in general. The 44GS case is absolutely breathtaking. I'm a huge fan of it, obviously, from the larger model. And I could certainly see incorporating a smaller model such as this into my collection because it feels different enough from the larger one to sort of justify its existence. These also come in at $5,200, which is on the more sort of entry side for Grand Seiko at this point, and feels like a fairly excellent value. And that's the SBGW293. To read my full hands-on, please head over to wornandwound.com. And if you found this video entertaining or informative, please do like and subscribe. Thank you so much.